Welcome to Unveiled Confessions, where the most raw and shocking confessions are revealed. I'm pushing for 1,000 subscribers, and your support makes all the difference. Hit that subscribe button and be part of the journey. You won't want to miss what's coming next. I met him on this low-key dating app. Not one of the major ones. This one felt quieter, like it filtered out the overly polished types. His name on the app was Mitch, and he had this lazy charm in his photos. Nothing too try-hard. Just a hoodie, soft smile, holding a takeout box outside what looked like a music venue. Messy hair, but not gross. We exchanged a few messages over the weekend, and he didn't seem weird or intense. Just chill. I wasn't even that into him at first. But we were both in the same area one night, and I figured why not? He offered to meet me at this small bar I liked. Real divey, sticky tables, dim lighting, a broken pool table that no one ever fixed. He showed up wearing the same hoodie from his pic, and we talked about dumb stuff, childhood snacks, terrible customer service stories, whatever. The night was just okay. Not magical or deep or anything, but I'd had worse. He had a decent sense of humor and didn't come off threatening or too forward. At the end, we walked out and were about to part ways when he did this thing where he checked his jacket pockets like 5 times and muttered that he couldn't find his keys. He looked genuinely annoyed at himself. Said he must have dropped them in the Uber or left them at the bar. He lived a few blocks away, but he didn't want to call his roommate at 2 a.m. Apparently, his roommate was the worst about getting woken up. I hesitated. My gut wasn't screaming no, but it also wasn't doing cartwheels. Still, he didn't ask to stay. He just stood there with that slightly embarrassed expression, hands shoved deep in his hoodie pocket, and said he'd probably crash outside on the steps until morning. That felt extreme, so I offered. I had a couch. I told him, just the couch. And he nodded like he got it. That night, he barely said anything once we got in. Took off his shoes at the door, stayed on the couch, didn't snoop. In the morning, I left for work before he woke up. I figured he'd bounce once he got a hold of his roommate or grabbed an Uber home or something. The rest of the day was normal. No weird texts, no calls. I didn't even really think about him, to be honest. Until I got back. I was tired. I'd worked a double. And when I got to my building, my key didn't fit. Not like the lock was jammed like it had been completely changed. I tried again. Same thing. I rang the buzzer to my own flat, just to see if maybe I was losing it. Nothing. I went down to the office, and that's when things got even more confusing. The landlord looked up from his desk like he'd already seen me that day. He asked what I was doing back. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He told me I'd moved out earlier that afternoon, took my stuff, signed a quick release form, handed over my key. He said I'd looked tired and was in a rush, that I'd said I found a new place. I told him I wasn't there, that I'd been at work, that my things were still in that apartment. He looked genuinely freaked out, went upstairs with me, knocked on the door, and who opens it? Mitch. Same hoodie, same fake-looking smirk like this was just some wild misunderstanding. Inside, my plants were gone, my framed photos gone. The rug I'd loved and dragged home from a weekend market, gone. It wasn't empty, though. Someone had moved in. His backpack was near the couch. My couch? A box of cereal I didn't buy was sitting on the counter. I tried to push past him, but he blocked the door. He was calm, too calm. Told the landlord I was his ex, and I had trouble letting go. Said I was pulling a stunt. The landlord looked from me to him, back to me, like he didn't know who to believe. I had no proof. I didn't have receipts in hand or photos on my phone of how the apartment looked before. My ID had my old address. My lease agreement was digital and buried in emails. I walked out, stood on the street. I called the police. They showed up, and it became clear real fast that this wasn't going to go my way. Mitch had printed fake mail with his name on it, dated 2 weeks earlier. A friend had witnessed the lease change. It looked legit enough. The landlord swore up and down that he saw me that day handing over keys. I was in total disbelief, like I was watching it happen through glass. I kept saying, "That's my place. That's my stuff." but the stuff was gone. I stayed with a friend that night. By the next morning, the guy had changed the locks again. I couldn't even prove what was in there anymore. My friend helped me scroll through old photos, Instagram pics of my flat, selfies with the shelves in the background, stuff like that. But it wasn't enough. A week later, I went by the building again, just to look. His name was already on the buzzer. I don't know where all my things ended up. Some probably trashed, some probably sold. My life got dumped like old clothes at a charity bin. I reported everything, opened a case, sent emails, showed time-stamped photos. Nothing stuck. You know what the cops told me? It was a civil dispute. I haven't been back to that side of town since. Every once in a while, I dream about walking in on him sitting in my old apartment like he belongs there. And the messed up part? He does now. It was supposed to be a simple first meetup. Nothing serious, just grab something to eat and talk a bit in person to see if the vibe matched the chats. I didn't even shave properly. Just threw on a hoodie, jeans, and told myself it was low stakes. If it was awkward, I could dip early. If it went well, maybe we'd grab another bite somewhere else. She picked the place, a drive-through burger joint out on the edge of the city where there's more parking lot than actual road. One of those places you only go to when you don't feel like dealing with crowds, or when you're broke and don't want to admit it. We'd only been talking for 4 days. She wasn't like the other matches. She didn't spam emojis or try to be quirky. She sent short replies, one-word answers, but I didn't think much of it. Some people are just bad texters. Her profile said she was into hiking and 80s movies. She had a nose ring and that sleepy, deadpan look in every pic. Not a smile in sight. When I pulled up, she looked good. Same black hoodie from her profile, same smudged eyeliner. She gave me the same flat, unreadable expression as in her photos. For a second, I almost laughed. At least she was consistent. We did a quick hi outside the car, and I offered to drive us to the place, since we were going through a drive-through anyway. She shrugged and got in. Didn't ask questions, didn't make awkward small talk. Just sat back and scrolled her phone like we'd known each other for months already. The drive was about 10 minutes. I tried to joke a bit, asked what her go-to order was, told her the fries at this place were the only reason I even came here. She gave me a short laugh, more like a breath through her nose, and went back to looking out the window. We got to the drive-thru, and I ordered for both of us. Double cheeseburgers, fries, sodas. I pulled into one of those side spots where they bring the food out when it's ready. Car was still running, music low. I stepped out to stretch my legs because the seat had been digging into my back all day from work. My phone buzzed, and I turned slightly to check it. I was maybe 10 steps from the driver's side, looking at my notifications when I heard the sudden click of a door shutting. She'd slid into the driver's seat. At first, I thought maybe she was messing around, just switching places for some dumb joke. But then the engine revved, and she peeled out. Fast, like tires squealing out of the lot fast. She didn't even glance at me, just full throttle onto the main road, vanishing into the night. For the first 3 seconds, I was frozen. Not confused, just stunned. Like that blank second when you drop your phone and it hasn't hit the ground yet. Then it landed. She was gone. With my car, and everything inside it. Laptop in the back seat, wallet under the console, house keys, charger cords, receipts, gym bag, even the dumb pack of gum I just bought. I stood in the parking lot, holding nothing but a receipt, watching her taillights disappear into the distance, like the last frames of a bad movie. I walked inside the burger joint and asked if I could use their phone. The cashier looked bored, but handed it over like this wasn't the first time he'd seen something like this. I called the police, explained what happened. They asked if I gave her permission to drive the car. I said no. They asked her name. I gave them the one from the app. They asked for her number, and I realized I didn't have it. We'd only messaged in the app. No phone number, no last name, no social media. They took the report, told me they'd see what they could do. I got a ride home from a friend after waiting in that parking lot for 2 hours like a loser. Got the locks changed that night. Borrowed a spare laptop just to log in and freeze my bank cards. Later that night, I opened the app. Her profile was still there. Same sleepy-eyed photo, still active. Same bio. Looking for someone honest. Like she hadn't just wiped me clean in 20 seconds. I reported her account, but nothing happened. The next morning, she'd changed her name, and her location had moved. The cops never found the car. Insurance gave me a fraction of what it was worth. She drained the small balance on my debit card at a petrol station an hour after she left. That was the last trace they could find. You'd think something like that would feel dramatic. Like the world would stop spinning for a second and someone would say, "This is messed up." But it didn't. It was just emails. "Call this number, wait on hold, fill out this form, we'll get back to you." She vanished. No updates, no return. Just an empty parking space and a case pending note on a report I had to print twice. Friends tried to laugh it off. "At least she didn't catfish you," one said. "Could have been worse," another added. But they weren't the ones stuck borrowing rides to work, explaining to clients why their files were gone, or waiting weeks for replacement cards. Every now and then, I open the app and look through profiles. Not because I'm still looking, I'm not, but because I keep expecting to see her again, under a new name, with the same hoodie, just waiting. And the thing that keeps me up at night isn't that she stole my car, it's that she wasn't surprised when she did it. She didn't hesitate, didn't check if I was watching, didn't flinch like she was taking a risk. She moved like she'd done it before. Like I wasn't her first empty parking space. My family doesn't usually care who I date. That's kind of their thing, stay out of my business unless I make it theirs. But I'd been seeing this guy, Dylan, for a little over 3 weeks, and things were actually going okay. We matched on Hinge. Not the usual mess of shirtless mirror pics or weird bios with gym stats. Dylan looked kind of bookish. Soft brown eyes, flannel shirts in every photo, answers to prompts that sounded like he was actually thinking about them. Said he liked quiet nights, long walks, and old jazz records. I rolled my eyes. At first, it sounded almost too clean, too precise, but after a few days of chatting, I figured maybe it was refreshing. We talked a bit before meeting. Our first date was just coffee and a walk. He was calm, polite, didn't talk over me, didn't try to fill every silence, just still, like someone who watches everything but doesn't feel the need to comment. By the third time we hung out, I told him I liked how relaxed he was. He smiled quietly and said something about not liking chaos. That made me like him even more. So we invited him over for dinner. It wasn't a big deal, just my parents, my younger brother, and my aunt who was staying with us for a few weeks. I wasn't nervous. They'd met a few of my boyfriends before and nothing ever got weird. My parents are polite. My brother's a handful but mostly harmless. My aunt loves drama but only the funny kind. Dinner was set early. My mom made her usual over-the-top spread: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, greens, and everything served on actual plates instead of our usual takeout boxes. My dad lit candles for no reason and told everyone to sit. I was mildly annoyed by the pomp, but it was cute. Dylan came right on time. Brought a bottle of red wine he said he liked, even though my mom doesn't drink. Complimented the house, removed his shoes, asked if he should help set the table. Everyone seemed impressed. Even my brother, who usually rolls his eyes at any new person in the house, nodded like he approved. We sat down. For the first 20 minutes, it was fine. Normal dinner chatter, work, movies, small talk. My mom asked about his family. He said they weren't close. She didn't push. My aunt made a joke about my childhood tantrums. He smiled along, chewing slowly. My brother tried to show him some meme on his phone. He laughed. It felt peaceful. Until it didn't. I don't know what triggered it. There wasn't a sudden argument. No weird glance. No awkward pause. Just 1 second we were passing the butter, and the next, he stood up. No words. No build-up. Just stood. He bent down like he dropped something. When he came back up, he was holding the steak knife from his plate. And then he lunged. Straight at me, Mum. No hesitation. No yelling. Just full speed. Across the table. knife out like he'd done it 100 times before. There was a horrible scraping sound as chair legs dragged across the hardwood. Plates clattered. I think I screamed. Everything felt like it was happening underwater, muffled but unbearably clear at the same time. My dad tackled him from the side before he could reach her. Both of them hit the floor hard. My mum fell back, hitting her arm against the radiator. The knife skidded across the floor. My brother snatched it up. My aunt was on the phone with 911, and Dylan didn't fight back, didn't struggle. He just lay there breathing heavily, eyes staring at the ceiling like nothing had happened. When the police arrived, they handcuffed him. He didn't resist, didn't even blink. Within minutes, he was gone. Later, when they updated us, they said he told the officers that my mum had looked at him the same way his ex did. Like that explained anything. Like that somehow justified almost stabbing someone at a family dinner. I don't know what that meant, what he'd gone through, what kind of history he had. But something inside him twisted enough that a casual glance from my mum sent him over the edge. I tried to look him up afterward. Nothing. No social media. His Hinge profile was gone. No old posts. No online footprint at all. Like he'd only existed for the month we'd talked. We stopped eating at the dining table after that. We moved to the kitchen counter, or the living room. Plates on paper towels, no candles, no sitting still long enough to feel vulnerable. My mum locks the front door now with one of those metal bars that makes you feel like you're in a panic room. My brother checks the windows before bed. My aunt refuses to stay over unless someone else is home. And the chair leg, the broken chair leg from the scuffle, it's still there. A silent reminder of what happened. A physical scar that keeps the memory alive. Even now, when we watch TV or laugh at something stupid, my mum sometimes goes quiet. She doesn't say anything, doesn't look scared. She just sits there, frozen for a second, like she's remembering him lunging across the table, like she's smelling the wine and chicken and hearing the scrape of that chair leg again. It still doesn't feel real. Some nights I can't believe it happened. I keep waiting for some logical explanation, a reason that makes sense in the world of normal people. But there isn't one. He doesn't exist anymore. Or at least, he doesn't exist in any record. Like a ghost, but real. Like a story that could have been avoided if we'd just not invited him over, but that thought doesn't help. All I know is we still have the broken chair leg. And that's enough proof for me. Proof that yes, it happened, and yes, it could happen again. And maybe that's the part that scares me most. I wasn't even looking for anything serious, just swiping out of boredom most nights. One of those stretches where every face starts to blend into the next same filters, same poses, same captions about dogs or sarcasm or being just here for the vibes. Then I matched with her. Name was Raina. Said she was 29, worked part-time, had a 5-year-old son. Her profile was full of soft lighting and kid-friendly energy. No glam shots. Just messy buns, oversized hoodies, and one photo of her holding a water bottle at a park. She told me up front that she didn't have a lot of time to go out because of her little man, but she was looking for someone real. I don't know why, but it made me want to prove I wasn't some waste of time. We talked off and on for like 10 days, mostly through voice notes. She had that sleepy voice, like someone who never gets enough rest. Kept saying it was hard to meet people as a single mom, and she didn't want to waste energy unless someone was serious. I kept reassuring her that I wasn't here to mess around. Eventually she invited me over, said she didn't really do babysitters, and asked if I was cool just hanging out at her place after her kid was asleep. She even made a joke about being too old for clubs and wanting someone to just watch a movie with. I agreed. The house was about 40 minutes away from where I lived, out past the main roads. Not exactly rural, but not walkable either. I almost bailed halfway through the drive. Something about the way she sent me the address last minute through a different number. But I kept going. When I pulled up, the lights in the living room were on, and the blinds were shut tight. The house itself looked old, but not run down, just private. Like it wanted to be ignored. She opened the door before I even knocked, smiling. She looked like her photos, which was a surprise. Hair tied up, baggy jumper, no makeup, I asked if her kid was asleep and she nodded, told me to come in quiet and slip my shoes off by the mat. The living room smelled like cheap air freshener and hot food that had been sitting out too long. There was a big pot on the stove that I could smell from the front door, something spicy, something slow cooked. We sat down on the couch. She didn't get too close. Said she was tired and asked if I wanted tea or anything. I said water. She went to the kitchen. I sat there for maybe a minute before I noticed something. The house was way too quiet for a place with a kid. No toys on the floor, no cartoons left running, no photos. I'd grown up with little cousins. There's always some kind of mess when you've got a kid. Always. Then I heard the footsteps. Not little ones. 3 separate sets. All heavy. All coming from down the hallway. Not the kitchen. I stood up halfway and turned, expecting maybe a roommate, maybe family, maybe she just wasn't alone. But what I saw didn't make sense at first. 3 men came into the room. They weren't dressed the same or anything. One was bald with a puffy jacket, one was tall and wiry in stained joggers, and the last guy he looked like he could have been her brother. None of them said anything for a few seconds. They just stood in front of the hallway entrance, looking at me like I was early for something I hadn't been invited to. Then one of them smiled, real slow, and said, "You're the daddy, right?" That's when my stomach dropped. Not because of what he said, but because all of them started laughing, like it was some inside joke I didn't want to understand. Raina came back in, sipping from a mug like it was just another Wednesday night. She didn't look shocked. She didn't tell them to leave. She didn't even look at me. I asked what was going on. The tall one said, "You want to leave without upsetting the kids?" He didn't laugh when he said it. I didn't see any weapons, but I didn't move. I knew better than to make a scene before I understood the rules. Then the bald guy pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was me outside my flat. Must have been taken the day before. He said they already had my info. They already knew where I lived. He told me I could make it right and send them a little cash for wasting their time. Said I shouldn't have pretended to be a man of the house if I didn't want to play the part. I asked how much. He said, "Enough not to disrespect the family." I opened my banking app. I didn't argue. I didn't question the number they gave me. I just sent it. A few hundred. The shortest guy took a look, nodded, and told me I could go. That was it. No shouting, no physical threats, no over-the-top chaos. Just manipulation, control. The kind you can't really report because nothing technically happened. I walked out, got in my car, drove 5 blocks before pulling over to throw up. When I checked my phone later, Raina's profile was gone, but a new one had popped up, different name, same face. This time the bio said, "Boy Mom X3 come." The guy didn't even seem that weird at first. That's the worst part. If he'd come off creepy or intense from the beginning, I would have unmatched right away. But no, he was just boring, like wallpaper. His name was Ryan, regular face, brown hair, wore a lot of gray. Every photo was him either hiking or holding a dog that didn't look like his. His bio said something about liking the outdoors and being a big fan of intentional living. I still don't know what that's supposed to mean. Anyway, we matched. He messaged first. Straightforward stuff. How's your day going? What music do you like? What's your go-to coffee order? We talked off and on for a week. Eventually, I said yes to a casual drink. The first date was fine. He picked a place walking distance from my flat, and we sat outside. He wasn't funny, but he asked a lot of questions, which I appreciated. We went out one more time. That second one was more awkward. He talked way more, mostly about how he hates small talk, but then told me 10 different stories about hiking in Wales. He ordered for me without asking. He also made a weird joke about how, once people get to know me, they always stick around. I laughed to be polite, but it didn't sit right. After that, I texted him that I didn't feel a connection. That was it. Just a simple message. He replied, "Okay." And that was the last time I heard from him, until I saw his car. The next morning, I walked out of work and saw this dusty gray Honda parked across the street. At first, I didn't think anything of it. 100 cars passed through that street every day. But I looked at the plates. It was his. I stood there a second, pretending to check my phone, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. But, yeah, definitely his. Same scratch on the rear passenger door. Same dream catcher hanging from the mirror. He wasn't in the car, though. Or if he was low enough to stay hidden. I didn't go up to it. Didn't even look for long. Just walked the long way around and got home. I tried to shake it off, told myself it might have been a weird coincidence. Maybe he worked nearby. Maybe it was something totally unrelated. 2 days later, I saw it again. This time, outside the yoga studio I go to every Thursday. That one was harder to explain away. The studio's in the back of an old shopping center. No restaurants, no stores, just a pharmacy and a couple of empty units. No reason to park there, unless you've got a reason to be there. This time, I did see him in the car, sitting in the driver's seat, engine off, just watching. I went inside quickly and told the instructor, who locked the door and walked me to my car after class. The Honda was gone by the time we left. That night, I blocked his number, reported his profile, set all my socials to private. Then nothing happened for a week. No sightings, no messages, no notifications, until I drove out to see my parents. They live about 40 minutes outside the city. Quiet neighborhood, lots of old folks, cul-de-sacs, bird feeders on every porch. I hadn't even told Ryan about them, not once. I pulled up for Sunday dinner, and there it was. His car, parked 2 houses down from theirs, facing their direction. That's when the panic fully hit. Because now it wasn't about coincidence. Now it wasn't me imagining things. He had followed me out of the city. He had figured out where my parents lived. I didn't tell them right away. Didn't want to ruin dinner or freak them out. I kept looking over my shoulder while we ate, made up some excuse to leave early, and drove around for 20 minutes afterward just to make sure I wasn't being followed. He wasn't behind me, but the next day, I checked the Ring cam at my flat, and there he was, standing across the street, 2:17 a.m. Just standing, arms crossed, hood up, not walking, not pacing, just there. For the next few weeks, it became constant. His car kept appearing, parked a block from my work, 2 spaces down from my gym, in the Tesco parking lot. Everywhere I went, he somehow managed to pop up, never close enough to touch me, never speaking. Always just far enough that I felt him watching, waiting, and the car, it had changed. Not the plates or anything, but it looked lived in. Bags in the back seat, a pillow, food wrappers, a power bank clipped to the dashboard. It looked like he'd set up a mobile home, like his full-time job had become just being near me. I filed a police report, provided photo evidence, plate numbers, ring cam clips. They told me there wasn't much they could do. He hadn't technically done anything illegal. He hadn't threatened me, hadn't stepped onto my property, hadn't said a single word. But he was always there. The gray Honda, engine off, just sitting, watching. I changed my routine, started walking home with friends, took different routes to work, tried to make it harder for him. Sometimes I'd see the car waiting at an intersection. As I turned a corner, tires angled toward me like a predator positioning itself. Even when I thought I was safe, it felt like he was still around. At night, I double-checked locks and windows. Daytime, I'd glance over my shoulder in supermarkets, cafes, and parking lots. And most times, there he was. Not moving, not acting, just existing. Every now and then I wonder if he's still out there somewhere nearby. If the car is parked a block down, waiting for the next time I step outside. And the worst part? He never looked crazy, never shouted, never acted impulsively. Just boring, like wallpaper. Normal enough that no one would have guessed he'd do this. And maybe that's why it's the most terrifying part of all. It was supposed to be a chill night. I wasn't expecting anything big. Just one of those low-effort meetups where you skip the bar, skip the small talk, and go straight to hanging out at someone's place. She messaged me first on Bumble. Name was Jenna. Profile was simple, only 3 photos, all blurry but decent enough. Wavy hair, thick eyeliner, oversized hoodie, sitting on the floor with a glass of wine in one. Her bio just said, low effort vibes only. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much. I was bored, alone, and my Friday plans had already fallen through. We messaged for like 3 hours before she asked if I wanted to come over. No back and forth, no phone call, just a straight-up invite. She said her flat was nearby, 5 minutes from the Tesco garage I knew well. Told me to come alone. Said she was already in her pajamas. Joked that she wasn't putting a bra back on just to meet halfway. I laughed at that. Stupid, but funny. The street was quiet when I pulled up. Her building was tucked behind a row of terraced houses, back entrance half renovated, a few empty beer cans lined up on the bins near the gate. I texted her I was outside. No reply. Then a minute later she sent, just come in, 2nd floor, door's unlocked. I hesitated. The door being unlocked already threw me a little. But whatever, I figured maybe she was just that chill. Maybe she didn't live alone. Maybe I was overthinking it. The hallway was dark, stale carpet, a loud fridge humming somewhere down the corridor. I found her flat number. Door slightly open. Light off. I said her name softly, half laughing like a moron, and stepped inside. The second the door shut behind me, everything flipped. 2 guys came out of nowhere, masks on. One from the kitchen, one from behind the door. I didn't even have time to register what was happening before the taller one slammed me against the wall. They didn't yell. No screaming. No wild punches. Just efficient. They pushed me to the floor, zip-tied my wrists, yanked my wallet and phone out of my pockets, and told me to stay still. One of them, shorter, scuffed black hoodie, went straight to my coat, took out my keys, checked the label on my work badge, smirked. I kept asking where she was, where Jenna was. No one answered. They took my debit card and asked for my PIN. The taller one had a pocket knife, and he held it against my side. Didn't press hard, just enough for me to feel it. I gave them the number. They didn't even question if I was lying, just left the room. I laid there on the scratchy carpet, trying not to move, heart thudding so loud I thought they'd hear it echo off the walls. Every second felt like minutes. I tried to convince myself that maybe they'd just take the money and leave. Maybe nothing else. Maybe it was just one of those weird situations that ends fast. 5 minutes later, they were back. No words. Just dropped my empty wallet on the floor, untied my hands, and told me to get up. I thought maybe they'd beat me up. Maybe they'd drag this out. But they didn't. The tall one opened the door and nodded toward it. That was it. I walked out, slowly, carefully. I didn't run until I got to my car, doors locked immediately. I reported it, obviously. Gave them the address, the details, everything I remembered. But here's the thing. There was no Jenna. The name wasn't real. The number stopped working the next morning. The flat was empty when police went back. Neighbors said no one had lived there for months. At first, I couldn't believe it. I kept thinking maybe it was some weird coincidence or some elaborate prank that went too far. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't random. It took a few days before I found out the full story. A friend of mine who's deep into Reddit true crime forums sent me a link. Apparently, there had been other guys, same setup. Same kind of girl, same blurry photos, different names, different addresses. Each one got lured into a random, empty flat. Jumped by 2 guys. Wallets taken, phones stolen. One guy even had his car stolen outside. No one had caught them. No fingerprints. No CCTV. The forums were filled with guys trying to piece it together, theorizing whether it was a gang, a network, or just 2 guys who had done it dozens of times before. And I walked straight into it. I replay every detail in my head. The way she messaged me casually, like nothing could go wrong. The way the door was unlocked. How quiet the hallway was, the hum of the fridge masking everything. The way they didn't scream or act chaotic, just efficient. It's a kind of terror that doesn't leave marks. No bruises, no cuts, just a memory that gets sharper every time I think about it. Now, I check doors. Always. Even at friends' places, even at my own flat, even at night when I live alone. I check the locks, the peephole, the hallway. Every time someone sends me a blurry photo with a lazy bio, my stomach twists. I don't respond. I don't swipe. I keep my distance. And every time I pass an empty flat, a darkened corridor, or see a shadow behind a frosted window, I think of that night. The night I walked into a trap, thinking it was just low-effort vibes. The night I learned that sometimes the scariest people are the ones who look like nothing at all. And the lesson sticks. I always check if the door's locked from the outside, because you never know when a chill night might not be so chill. I always said I'd never be one of those people who lets strangers into their house on a first date, especially not someone I met on an app. But sometimes people catch you off guard when you're bored, lonely, or just wanting to feel like someone thinks you're interesting for 5 minutes. His name was Cal. Profile was clean, nothing try-hard. He looked tall, clean haircut, white t-shirt, soft eyes. His messages were full sentences, no weird emojis, no wid texts at midnight. Just normal questions: what music I like, if I'm more of a city or countryside person, if I cook. He seemed grounded, smart, the kind of guy you imagine already owns coasters. I told him I had a dog, and he actually asked about her. He remembered her name Marnie, which no one ever does unless they're pretending to be polite. He said he loved dogs, grew up with a golden retriever named Toby, and asked what breed Marnie was. So yeah, I let my guard down. We talked for about 2 weeks, mostly texting. Then we did a FaceTime. Good lighting, plant in the background, framed art. His voice was calm, didn't interrupt once. I remember thinking how rare that was. I invited him over on a Sunday afternoon. Nothing serious, just tea, music, maybe a film. I figured if things got weird, I could cut it short. Marnie barked the second he got to the door, which wasn't unusual. She's small, dramatic, thinks she runs the house. I picked her up before opening it. He smiled when I let him in, said she was cute, asked if she always barked like that. I laughed and said yeah. She was protective. He reached out to pet her. She squirmed in my arms, but he didn't flinch or look annoyed. We sat on the couch. He asked about the books on my shelf, complimented my speakers, told me I made the place feel warm. Honestly, I was impressed. For the first 40 minutes, he was perfect. Dry humor, knew my favorite band, didn't try anything pushy. He even offered to help carry in a package left by the front door. Marnie had calmed down a bit but still paced around, giving him the occasional side-eye. And then it happened. Out of nowhere. One single bark. Loud. Right at his feet. He turned and kicked her. Full force. Like it was reflex. She yelped a sharp, high-pitched yelp and slammed into the edge of the coffee table. Then she curled into a ball, trembling, not moving. I screamed. Not even words, just some noise I didn't recognize coming out of my mouth. I dropped to the floor, scooped her up. She was shaking in my arms, legs stiff, eyes wide. My stomach knotted. I told him to get out, over and over, over and over. He just sat there, legs crossed, calm, like nothing had happened. And then he said it. You're overreacting. That mutt had it coming. I froze. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Like he was talking about a broken remote or a burnt dinner. I told him again. Louder. To get out. And finally, he stood up. But slow. No guilt. No shame. He walked to the door, adjusted his jacket, and before leaving, looked at me and said I should train her better. Then he left. I locked the door behind him, shaking. Marnie was still whimpering in my arms. We went straight to the emergency vet. She had a fractured rib and bruising near her spine. They kept her overnight. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he kicked her. The calmness in his expression. The way he spoke like it was normal. When I got home that night, I blocked him on everything. Reported him on the app. But the weirdest part? His profile was gone, like it vanished the moment he left. I tried calling the number he'd been using. Disconnected. His name probably wasn't even Cal. I checked the call logs and realized the FaceTime had been through the app, not his actual number. No social media, no digital trail. Just a guy who walked in, charmed his way through my home, and kicked my dog like she was nothing. Marnie's okay now. Mostly. She limps a bit, and she won't go near strangers. She hides behind the couch if someone new comes to the door. And I haven't used a dating app since. I replay every detail. The way he remembered her name. The calmness. The way he lingered in the apartment. The kick. The words. And I think about what could have happened if I'd been alone without her. If it had been a child in my place. Or a stranger without warning. There's a sort of terror in knowing someone can appear normal for long enough to get inside your home, your space, your life, and still do something violent without hesitation. I still think about it when I see his type online. Clean-cut, normal, polite, the kind of person you'd never suspect. Marnie doesn't understand. She just looks at me like she's wondering why he hurt her, and I can't explain it to her. Every time the doorbell rings now, even at friends' houses, I flinch. Every shadow in my flat makes my chest tighten. Every knock, every ding of the oven timer, every little sound I tense up. And the worst part? I know he's probably gone, vanished back into the world, already doing it to someone else. And me? I remember every detail, every calm moment before the chaos, every second that I let my guard down. And I tell myself I'll never do it again. I haven't. I don't swipe. I don't chat. I don't answer messages from anyone new. I still scroll through the app sometimes, not to meet anyone, just to see the faces, the bios, and every time I think about him. Calm, smiling, white t-shirt, soft eyes, and how he kicked my dog. There wasn't anything weird about her at first. Honestly, she seemed like the most normal girl I'd matched with in months. Her name was Lana. Blonde streaks in dark hair, septum ring, a nose that crinkled when she smiled. Her profile was short, just said, "Not into games, just come over and vibe." Normally, I'd ignore that, but something about her was interesting. Her voice notes were chill, kind of sleepy. She sounded like the kind of person who could fall asleep mid-conversation and somehow make it seem cool. We talked for about 4 days before she invited me to hers. She said she didn't like crowds, hated bars, preferred staying in. Her flat was in a part of town I used to live near, so I said, yeah, why not? I got there at like 9 p.m. She opened the door barefoot, in an oversized t-shirt and those loose pajama pants with little moons on them. Everything about her felt soft. Low lights, no makeup. She smelled like coconut or vanilla or something sweet. The flat was small but cozy. One of those open-plan studio types, plants on the windowsill, candles half-burned everywhere, old lava lamp in the corner. We watched a movie on her laptop, ate snacks on her bed, joked around a bit. She wasn't flirty in a fake way, just kind of zoned in. The kind of girl who watches your mouth when you talk, like she's trying to memorize it. Eventually, we fell asleep. Nothing wild happened, just comfort. Her head tucked under my chin, her breathing steady. I woke up around 7 a.m. The sun was sneaking through her curtains, and her room had this weird orange glow to it. She was still asleep, one leg flopped over mine, mouth slightly open. My phone was dead. I'd forgotten to plug it in. I looked around for my charger and remembered I'd dropped it on the floor somewhere, but the cord was missing. I checked the edges of the bed, leaned down, spotted part of the wire sticking out under her pillow. I gently reached over her, careful not to wake her, and slid my hand under the pillow. Instead of the cord, I grabbed something cold, metal, and heavy. I froze, pulled my hand back slightly, looked. It was a kitchen knife. Big, clean, the kind with the thick black handle and the wide blade. My heart dropped into my stomach. Before I could move, her eyes opened. No stretching, no confusion. She just looked straight at me, completely awake now, and said calm as anything, "Don't go through my things. It makes me paranoid. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, hand half stuck under her pillow, my fingers still cold from touching the blade. She didn't move, didn't blink, just kept staring. Then, like it was no big deal, she rolled over and said she was going back to sleep. I got up slowly, said I needed the bathroom. My voice cracked a bit, but I played it off. She mumbled something like, "Don't lock the door." There wasn't even a lock on it. I splashed water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror, and tried to process what had just happened. Who keeps a kitchen knife under their pillow? Not on the nightstand, not in a drawer, literally under their head while they slept. I went back to the room and told her I had to dip, made up some story about a friend needing help moving furniture or something dumb like that. She didn't react, just said, "Cool," and pulled the blanket over her head. I grabbed my stuff and got out. I didn't run, but my pace down those stairs was not casual. Every step felt louder than it should have. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see her behind the door, watching me leave. Once I got to the street, I realized I still didn't have my charger. I left it. Whatever. Not worth going back for. I didn't message her again. I blocked her number. But 2 nights later, I saw a new account pop up on the same app. Same pictures, same bio. New name, Moonchild. I didn't report it. I just deleted the app, and I started sleeping with my own bedroom door locked. I double-check it now. Every night, even if I'm alone, even if I've been living here for years, every shadow, every creak in the floor makes me jump. Every little sound in the hallway feels amplified, like it could be her, or someone else who's learned the same lesson. Look normal, lure people in, and keep them unsure of what's real. Sometimes I think about what could have happened if I hadn't woken up. If my hand had grabbed the cord first, if I just leaned over her pillow like it was nothing. I try not to think about it, but it comes back every time I see a simple profile with a few blurry photos and a short bio. Just a casual invite, a line about low-effort vibes. And I know now I'll never be that careless again. I'll never walk into someone's flat unprepared, never leave my charger lying on the floor, never assume calm, soft voices mean soft, safe people. Because Lana or Moonchild taught me that appearances are everything. And sometimes, the normal ones are the most dangerous. I don't use dating apps anymore. I don't reply to strangers online. And I sleep with my door locked every single night. It's a habit now. My apartment smells like vanilla and candles, not coconut. Marnie, my cat, jumps on my chest sometimes as I check the locks one last time. And I breathe a little easier knowing that, at least tonight, the door is locked. But I still remember the weight of that knife, the cold metal under my fingers, the calm, awake eyes, and I know I'll never forget it.